I love that because I like how like Orthodox will basically say that Catholics are Protestant, right? Because they're like, well, you've cleaved from the one true church.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I've got a real soft spot for the Orthodox. I like an icon. I like a bit of incense. I like Greek food. It's all good in my
Priests have
opinion.
beards.
I like Greek food. Yeah,
That's right, baby.
Yeah.
I
also
think
like
that-
Greek food.
I think allowing priests to get married really cuts down on a lot of the noncing.
That's true.
So I'm a huge fan of that.
Didn't the
Okay,
Catholic Church
I
put all
have heard- I have heard
misogynists
on that one, actually.
What?
So apparently there is a lot of noncing that goes on in the Protestant churches. It's just not as well reported because there's no
God
centralized authority.
Damn it.
Oh yeah, the Jews also do a lot of nonsing. I think it's more that religious extremism makes you a dick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we all have local recordings going, incidentally?
Yeah, I got my
mine's
local going.
Okay, good.
Okay. So we're technically in the podcast.
Yeah. No, I think what it is that, as we know, the one true holy, what is it? The one true holy and apostolic
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 Yeah.
church.
Did I say
Yes.
apostolic? Jesus Christ.
The one true Appalachian church.
The snake handlers.
Well,
Yep.
yeah.
Roz, this is news that only affects you, but Cane's opens Thursday, May 12th at 8 a.m. at where Bobby's Burger Palace used to be.
What?
Roz
Cane's.
doesn't know what the hell we're talking
I'm gonna
about.
start the
Is
podcast
this
now.
Cane's Chicken?
Just leave
Raising
that
Cane's,
bit in.
yeah.
the
dude.
Leave
podcast
that
that
bit
we're
in.
doing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Raising Cane's.
Hello and welcome to There's Your
Little
Saladin, a podcast about how cool I think Saladin was.
That's right.
You know who we are, but we also got Dr. Eleanor Yarniger, friend of the show, historian, back on to talk about the Crusades.
Hello.
Yes.
These guys have a lot to answer for. Let's go.
All right.
So, what if we went to the first slide?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, Alice. I got this.
What? God
All
damn
right.
it.
So the Crusader was the sort of budget streamliner that the Reading Railroad had, right? So back in December of 1937, they wanted
looks
to
like the helmet.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They wanted to have a competing service with the Pennsylvania Railroad from Philadelphia to New York City. This is by way of West Trenton, right?
Give me
It went
the real first slide.
Yeah.
God
So
damn
it was
you.
about a 90-minute schedule.
Oh,
It was,
God.
they had this old.
this
they
is
got
a
this.
coup.
Yeah. So it was a
Ross,
Baldwin. Baldwins are going to be relevant later. It was a Baldwin steam locomotive.
Now, was this
and some
Baldwin in
Bud
Philly
cars.
or Baldwin in Eddystone?
This would have been Baldwin and Eddystone.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I
right,
just
yeah.
have 35 more questions
Exactly.
about this. Can you tell me
It's
more
named-
about its traction?
They called it the Crusader because a guy named P.W. Siltzer of Plainfield, New Jersey, won a prize to name the train. He
What?
said, "Call it the Crusader." Right? He
was
won
the dude- a
$250.
Tradcaf.
Yeah.
Incredible.
They put diesel locomotives on in the 50s. They replaced it with Bud RDCs in 1967 after the Aldine connection severed the.
I am placing my head in my
yeah.
hands.
So anyway, it was around for a while, but it formally ended in like 1982 when New Jersey Transit stopped serving West Trenton.
Formally
They
ended
cut
in
that.
1982 and New Jersey Transit
I will
invaded
say-
Antioch.
Exactly.
The wiki has this safety is your job on this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very nice. Now, let's talk about the Holy Cross Crusaders. Now, my uncle went to Holy Cross for a semester before he dropped out. We're going to talk about the men's rowing team specifically. Now,
You have to wear the place armor as you rode.
did
Just
you know
like
that Holy
climbing
Cross
the
is
whole
one of
time?
9 schools to have won an NCAA championship in both baseball and basketball?
I am feeling like a white Saladin right now.
Well,
to
it
be
is
honest, because
interesting.
I'm going
They
to put
put-
all of
they
you to the
put-
sword.
Stainless steel armor over the steam locomotive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
this is
Yeah.
Holy Cross and Boston College first played football against each other in 1896.
God damn it.
my first turn to write the bonus episode in fucking 3 months, and this is the way that I'm treated.
I will say about that I was cooed because my idea originally wasn't as much. I'm not unhappy. The NASCAR bonus episode wasn't my idea. You just made me do it.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because I wanted to have Victoria back on, so I was just
Girl,
like,
I
Liam,
said.
do NASCAR. Yeah,
I do love Victoria. Now, if I can direct your attention back to the College of the Holy Cross Crusaders.
That's fair. Go ahead. Tell us about rowing.
Oh, I got nothing. I was just trying to annoy you.
And it worked. Look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So-
Take that tone.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but before it was the first
Shut
and
up.
pretty much only stainless
you.
steel streamlined steam train, there was some people who called themselves Crusaders in history.
That's true, and we're going to talk about them for 3 to 5 hours instead.
I have work in the morning.
And we have here a fine example of the subject of today's episode, the real subject, which is religious violence.
Hey, everybody's favorite.
We love to combine religion and we love to combine warfare. It's true of like a lot of societies and a lot of different times, lots of different places. Like you're sort of
the violence is what makes the religion work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like peanut butter and chocolate, right? So you have your sacred wars of religion in ancient Greece. You have your European wars of religion in the 16th century, all the way through to like ISIS, fucking Mesoamerican flower wars, are kind of wars of religion because they're done to like please and honor gods. And this then gets into a sort of quite a fraught historical question, right? Because you go, well, if everybody is fucking religious all the time and everybody is making war on each other all the time. Thank you. Is there a like meaningful distinction? Like, can you say that there's like a specifically religious war?
That's a good question because it's sort of like religion plays a part in almost every war. So, whether or not we want to admit that. So even particularly if we're talking about wars now, like we'll pretend that they're a-religious, but they will couch it in sort of like a clash of civilizations stuff.
Did
and it's like,
Bush 2 straight up call the Iraq invasion or the invasion of Afghanistan a crusade?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I just want to say God loves you and wants you to kill people.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing you need to learn. God loves you, but he doesn't like you very much.
That's right.
Yeah, you're also not very important to him. What is important to him is glory. And the way that you get that glory...
You are scraps on God's plate.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you can also like, because one thing I've noticed about historians, and I say this with the best will in the world, is that as a sort of a school, you guys love to fucking complicate shit. If a historian gets to go, well, I think this actually complicates the narrative, you love that shit.
That's right. That's right, ho. Like, guess what? I'm simply here to say, but actually it's more complex than that repeatedly, just over and over again. Although I think that if you're talking about the Crusades, you don't even need to do that because I think it's pretty clear. Like, these fucking guys, this is my thing about the Crusades in general. And I think I try to avoid talking about them at all costs because I think they're so complex and annoying. But
and yet you agreed to be on this podcast.
And look, it just shows how much I love you guys. Come on, like I'm just a great friend and adequate historian.
You barely complicate anything.
No, you wouldn't complicate a little birthday boy, etc. I don't. But it's true, and it's one of these things that's kind of annoying because, some of us who are in the Daily Mail today have been called revisionist historians, and I'm like, mate, that just means you're a historian. The point is, it's like, oh, they're rewriting history. It's like, no, it's just called writing history, honey. It's
I wasn't expecting us to do Holocaust denial 10 minutes in, but here we are.
So, I mean, I think you're right. Like, the Crusades are kind of remarkably unambiguous for what they are, especially as religious warfare, because there is a religious authority involved that tells people what to do. It tells them to do warfare in a specific place and a specific time, and then a bunch of guys go and do it. And that's like as straightforward as an example as you could possibly hope for.
I mean, there are all kinds of attendant things that come along with the Crusades, and I'll have people ask me all the time, and they'll be like, "Oh, but really, didn't people go on crusade because they wanted to make money?" And da 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 da. And I'm like, "Look, those are all bits that are present, within the desire to crusade. But you have to take these guys at their word. If they're saying to you, yeah, I'm going over there because I want a Christian to join up, you have to believe them.
Yeah.
Sure, like if they make some money, I'm sure that would be great as well. But
when people show you who they are, believe them the first time, right?
Exactly. Like, yes. I don't know what else you want to call the Pope sending people over there and like yelling Deus Vult. Yeah.
So with that in mind, I figured I would just sort of relate a broad, very potted narrative of the first 4-ish crusades, because after that I got bored. So with that in mind, the year is 1095 AD, and as is from time to time the case in history, the world is confronted with...
It's CE. It's the Common Era.
CE, excuse me.
No, it's
not.
Anno Domini.
These guys thought it was fucking Anno Domini.
The year of our Lord. 10...
That's crazy. 1095. Guess what? I'm alive and they're not. So,
but as is sometimes the case in history, the Christian world, is confronted with, next slide please, a really annoying Turkish guy.
Joe Kasabian, where are you at?
Alice is here trying to foment more pod beefs.
Listen, they're easy jokes and I like to make them because they're easy. So
here I am, here you are, War to the Turks.
Absolutely. Yeah. So after the emergence of Islam and the death of Muhammad, the various successor states, the various caliphates, they had fought the Byzantine Empire, who are like the Eastern... Well, they consider themselves Eastern Rome. They consider themselves the Roman Empire's like...
It is just the Roman Empire.
Yeah, they never call themselves Byzantium. We call them that. I like to call them Eastern Rome just because I'm a dick about it.
Yeah. And I mean, the Byzantines had been fighting the Persians already, and they just kind of like continued that anyway, but now with an extra little religious frisson of maybe you should become Muslim. Now, the fortunes of these various caliphates are sort of beyond the scope of this paper, right? But suffice it to say that they rise, they fall, they take a lot of slaves, they make those slaves convert to Islam, they convert a lot of people on their borderlands to Islam without making them slaves. And in doing so, Islam spreads very, very widely across Africa, Central Asia, including into the steppes of what is now Kazakhstan. Which is populated by guys who I guess would ethnically be called Turks.
Yeah, they're Turkic.
This will get confusing because there are like 500 different groups here who are all Turks. Also, the Christians call everybody a Turk, even if they're not a Turk.
Turk-esque.
Yeah, exactly.
Turkish.
Turkish, yes.
So at the end of the 10th century, a bunch of these guys, the Seljuks, are sort of like, they become Muslims sort of partially voluntarily, partially through enslavement. And then they sort of migrate south into what's now Iran and absolutely kick everyone's dick in is the main thing about the Seljuks.
Get them dicks out. We're going to see them. We're going to kick them.
I don't want to do cock and ball torture on this podcast. I don't think that's an unreasonable
ask. That's what they do to the Ghaznavids. That they take fucking Baghdad, they take Mosul, and a lot like the Mongols in China later on. They sort of once they've conquered, they kind of stay and they like it. And although they're originally nomadic, they quite like all of the sort of trappings of culture that come with ruling these places. You can sort of say that they become Persianized, especially like they start speaking and writing in Persian. They also, as any ruler who wants to like legitimize themselves does, they become huge patrons of the arts as well. So you get a lot of poetry out of this. You get a lot of like fancy tiles out of this and so on.
I fucking love the tiles. I just want to like quick shout out to the tiles. MVP in my opinion. They also do a lot of like really cool ceramics based on Ming era pottery, where they kind of like make their own versions, and I think it whips and it's good in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean the best thing that you can do is to kind of like endow these sort of publicly useful like caravanserais or things like that, hospitals even, and all of those are like beautiful or were. The ones that survive in any form, kind of. Mm-hmm. But they keep expanding. In 1055, they take Baghdad, which is like the important city to sort of like the Middle East at this point. And then they expand into sort of Anatolia, eastern Turkey, the eastern bit of the Byzantine Empire. And to sort of everyone's surprise, in 1071, they win the Battle of Manzikert. And they take Anatolia. They take what's now the eastern half of Turkey. And in part because these are sort of nomadic people, they're quite adept at having the sort of governmental structures to colonize Anatolia, which is essentially you just give it to the guy who conquered it, right? He's now the like father general, the Atabeg of this place, and he can rule it like and settle people in it and convert people to Islam and try and like raise soldiers from it. And
because you get yourself
a
local wife, you bring the boys. And that's what's up, that's it.
Absolutely. And this is, of course,
good time was had by all.
Yeah. And because we know that the Byzantines like to think of themselves as Rome, so too now do the Seljuks. Like the bit of Anatolia that they occupy, they just call the Sultanate of Rome, but same difference. And, they're thriving. It's a good time. And if we get the next slide, please.
So is this where this is where like the narrative of the next Rome gets complicated, right? Because the what you got like Kiev and Rus going on at the same time, like we're the third Rome, and then like Moscow's the third Rome, and then like all kinds of weird shit there. I vaguely remember history from freshman year of high school.
You've also got around this time, the Holy Roman Empire is about to be like is a thing again. We've kind of got the Ottonian dynasty.
Yes.
Like cranking at this bit. So, we've got a Roman emperor in the West back as well. And it's interesting to me that, one of the things that we don't do is take the Holy Roman Empire seriously when actually we should, just because everyone knows one Voltaire quote and are incredibly boring. But you've got a lot of
well, damn.
Holy Roman, they're an empire. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, I swear to God, if I hear that
so
one
long,
more time,
they were like 10 years away from having railroads when it finally collapsed.
I know, right? Like, that's a pretty good empire. You should be so lucky, guys. Come on.
And the idea of Rome is like really compelling to the Islamic world as well. Like it's mentioned in the Quran. It's a surah of the Quran that describes the war between the Sassanid Persians and the Byzantines.
Wow.
It's sort of very much this idea of like this is what Western civilization, whatever that's worth, is. It's a sort of like shorthand for temporal power as well, in the same way that it had been for a lot of other people throughout history. So the thing about maps, right? You remember the fucking map of all of the little fucking like princely territories of the Holy Roman Empire?
Yes.
And everyone's like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. How do you have this like 12 square foot of someone's garden is like an electorate?
People gotta get elected. People gotta do stuff.
Every map is wrong. Every map is wrong because like we living in sort of post Treaty of Westphalia sort of like imagination, we think, oh, it's painted this color on the map. That's a state. It works like a modern state, and it doesn't. All of these have more to do with like you and your boys, right? Various family networks, various webs of political intrigue and stuff, holding all of these together. Same with this.
Yeah, like none of these guys are about to like build you a hospital or make roads for you, right? Like there is no council election. There are simply no bin men to even be hard, right? Like it's just about like which dudes can collect money from you and like who are you on
is this
screen
mostly
in
like for
of.
A taxation thing? Like
because it'd be like, well, this is the guy who collects tax here,
Okay.
Sort of at this point in the Islamic world, there's a system called iqta, which is remarkably similar to feudalism in the West, which is like very much the like this is the number of soldiers which this land can be taxed to support in like a levy, right?
Sure.
And then like most of the time you just fucking farm beets or whatever the fuck.
It's a massive excuse to avoid inventing the telegraph.
Exactly.
Yeah, no one wants to invent railroads yet either.
Yeah.
No one will talk about this, but I am brave enough to.
Yeah.
So
these people could have invented the telegraph at any time.
so this big yellow Seljuk sort of paint here, that's not reflective of like a centrally organized state at all. It's barely reflective of a decentralized state. Like you might have sort of like Atabegs or emirs who like run cities and the areas around them. Like there's going to be an emir of Baghdad, there's going to be an emir of Damascus. They don't necessarily like each other or even really owe any common allegiance to anyone. And, you know, especially because of this ability to colonize land that you take off of the Byzantines, that makes the Sultanate of Rome, Anatolia, makes those guys very, very powerful.
Yeah. Like they had a really good thing going here because they were able to just kind of like go in there and exploit what systems did exist. And that means that they could kind of take them over. Like the Fatimids are the ones who really got the biggest and like keyest sweep because, you know, the African littoral was pretty much the breadbasket of Byzantine Empire. Like that's where Eastern Rome got all its money was from Egypt. And they're like, you know, and then you kind of like take Damascus and everything, and they're like, fuck, shit, you know, like this is where they're making a lot of money. But it's kind of like testament actually to the fact that Eastern Rome was fairly well pulled together, that when these bits fall, they fall so quickly, right? So like that's actually evidence of a fairly well regulated state, because if you had lots of small little bibs and bobs, that would be, you know, like more difficult to kind of like wield into a cohesive whole right away. So they just kind of fall over like a deck of cards because there is a state and they weren't expecting to get their asses handed to them quite so much as they did. So, you know, it's interesting because it's a little bit of one thing and a little bit of another, right?
Because of all the cock and ball torture, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We also see another sort of early theme here, which is Muslims fighting other Muslims, both within these sort of states that we're calling like the Seljuk Empire or the Fatimid Caliphate, and against each other. The Fatimids notably had been sort of early conquerors of Egypt and the Levant. They had like conquered Jerusalem, Damascus, all this. They're also Shia, which does not go down very well with the Sunni Seljuks. And at this point in history, they're looking quite weak. And so it's relatively easy for like individual Seljuk adventurers, guys who just want to get like an army together and take somewhere in the hopes of their reward being administering it, to just knock off places on the periphery. So like they try this in Georgia, and most notably they try this in the Levant. They come down through what's now sort of Jordan, northern Israel, Syria, and they take Damascus. In particularly, I'm talking about one guy, Atsiz ibn Waq.
Just a dude. Just
one dude and his guys. Atsiz ibn Waq is not a nice man.
Sending a text to the boys like, yo, what the fuck did we conquer Damascus last night?
Yeah, Atsiz and the cast of the show Entourage.
That's gonna be our podcast in a couple of years. We'll accidentally take Damascus.
We're gonna take Damascus. See, like he does take Damascus, which is by far the big deal in the Levant. Like that's the big city. He incidentally takes Jerusalem. Jerusalem is only really sort of notable for religious activity. Like it's important on Bible that basis.
Shit,
yeah, kind of.
Some wall I've never heard of.
Yeah, exactly.
What we really want is Bethlehem for the steel mill there.
And Lehigh. We talk about Bethlehem, Pennsylvania a lot on this show.
So Atsiz is not a nice man. He's not very nice to Christians in particular. And there's still a lot of Christian pilgrims who want to go to Bethlehem, who want to go to Jerusalem. They want to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And in some cases, he prevents them and menaces them and does other horrible things to them.
Cancel.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, he also, most notably in 1077, Jerusalem itself rebels against him. And his instinct there is, you just slaughter everyone.
It's going to be mass murder, yep.
Yeah, it's mass murder. This is the first of like... countless massacres that we have here. Most notably, like a lot of the population of Jerusalem at this point are Muslim, include Muslim rebels, and when the Muslims who rebel against him sort of are forced to retreat, they hole up in Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, and he kills all of them in Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, this is
Seems bad.
This is not
shouldn't do that.
Not what you call a diplomatic move. Like, if you get a sense of like how angry people were about the Israeli Defense Forces firing tear gas into Al-Aqsa last week, putting people to the
again.
Yeah,
they love doing it, man.
They love it. That's their favorite.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So putting people in like to the sword in there, that's a lot worse. Like, and has been so for several hundred years.
Yeah, I feel like Allah is not a huge fan of that. I don't mean to speak for he who cannot be spoken for, and yet, I'm just going out on a limb,
Yeah. So he gets pretty quickly ousted after this by one of the sons of the Seljuk Shah, Malik Shah I. And these various dipshit sons are like some of the main power bases. So this is an important guy sort of taking care of an unimportant guy who has made a problem for him. Sort of like the Irishman. No, genuinely, I think one of the best ways to understand this stuff is mob shit, right? Like, it's absolutely a case of like guys who try to like claw their way up, running into these established familial networks, inconveniencing them and getting killed. So Malik Shah has him strangled to death with a bowstring, which is your classic like step Turk kind of thing.
The classic Turk right here.
Absolutely.
The Turk. What was it? The Turk lusting for something. The lustful Turk.
He lusts in his heart for Vienna. Yeah.
Well, he also lusts in his heart for autoerotic bow string.
Just anything sort of like archery paraphernalia related. These guys like,
we've all been there. We've all been there.
So Atsius is dead. The guy who was like fucking with the pilgrims is dead. The Fatimids take back Jerusalem anyway, so it's not even the Seljuks' problem. Doesn't matter. The damage has been done. Next slide, please.
I feel like one thing you never want to hear on this podcast is the damage has been done.
No.
Yeah.
So the guy on the right who looks kind of annoyed really was. This is Alexios the First. He's the emperor of Rome.
Look at his incredible robe. Like absolute emperor shit.
Dude,
Love
that is a good fit.
That's a
right
good
there,
robe.
Actually.
Yeah.
Drip
The
alert.
drip.
Alert.
Yeah, it's dripping.
So he's not particularly like happy that the Byzantine Empire has lost a shitload of territory in the east. He's also not particularly happy that Christian pilgrims are getting waylaid. And this is a point like pre-Great Schism. This is a point at which the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church consider themselves to be very much brother Christians, not in like fun, happy, interdenominational, like let's hold hands sort of way.
God, no.
But there's a distinct sort of point in the relations between the two that we'll get to in the course of this episode, and this is before that. So Alexios gets in touch. He sends embassies to guy on the left, Pope Urban II.
Oh boy.
To the effect of this is a bad situation for Christendom, which is like a real thing. It definitely exists. I'm not making it up for the purposes of this letter. Please help. And
I'm just imagining there's like two popes, and you've got the
inside of you there are two
popes.
One in Avignon and one in Rome.
Rural.
Yeah.
And there's a Matt Iglesias think piece about the urban-rural divide. Yeah.
I'm actually an urbanist.
Mistake.
So
guess what? You're going to be excommunicated.
So the Vatican is hearing about pilgrims getting waylaid and oppressed and stuff, and the idea kind of vaguely forms that maybe we could sort of do something about this. Also, Urban sort of really starts making positive noises when he gets one of these embassies from Alexios, one of these letters. It's probably like his third, so the guy's really been bugging him about it.
I like that you said starts making positive noises like he's some sort of trained seal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But he gets this letter at a place called Piacenza, where Urban
whoop.
where Urban the Seal Pope is on he's on tour like a band. He's doing a See the Pope tour of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With SeaWorld.
Yeah, the first three rows will get wet.
Popes keep dying in the tank.
So you may ask, why is the Pope on tour? And the answer is because the Holy Roman Empire has just gotten
keep
out
that
of
up for the next 2.5 hours, Roz.
The Holy Roman Empire has just gotten out of a 50-year civil war over whether or not the Holy Roman Empire can veto a bishop that the Pope appoints.
That's right.
Can they?
Which the answer to this generally, and as in this case, is absolutely not. That is a privilege that the Pope reserves himself. This sort of culminates in Pope Gregory VII making the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV wear a hair shirt and stand in the snow for 3 days to beg his repentance.
Yeah, he has to go. It's called like the walk to casino, and it was like for 4 days he made him stand out in the snow barefoot before he'd allow him into to Canossa. Before he'd allowed him into the city.
I was curious.
That seems a bit extreme.
What is a hair shirt?
It's
a
like
shirt
really
made
itchy
of
shirt.
like really coarse wool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like painful to wear. Yeah.
Yeah.
And genuinely, one of the things I was surprised to learn about this is that going to Canossa, like that left such a sort of psychic wound in Germany that it's like an expression for a political humiliation that was used by like Hitler and Bismarck. That's how long it like stayed in currency as a sort of like some sort of byword for humiliation.
I mean, it's like in incredibly like I mean not to defend the Ottonians, or anything like that, but
I thought this was going to start not to defend Hitler. Thank God it did.
No, 100%. That's not where we're going. Thanks very much. But yeah, like the whole investiture controversy, as we call it, the like Pope make bishops thing, like that was news to everybody. It was like, as far as everyone was concerned, for quite some time, the Pope was just the Bishop of Rome, right? And it's like you kind of wheeled him out if you were Charlemagne and you wanted an extra fancy coronation. But like the Pope was no guy, right? And it's just like at this point in the 11th century when the church starts to wield enough administrative power, and they finally like got their ducks in a row enough that they could like do stuff like this. And for most of the time, like kings did appoint the bishops they wanted, and they just like put their cousin in there or whatever, or their brother, right? And like it was pretty much their call. So the Pope wading in and saying, no, that's not what happens, is actually quite new. It also like is definitely something to talk about when we're talking about Eastern Rome as well, because one of the things that like becomes heightened in all of this is that the Pope would constantly try to be like, yeah, but I control the Eastern Church too. And like the various patriarchs would be like, homie, no, and then so like you can see kind of like the disdain with which the Eastern Roman Empire reacts to the church. Kind of everyone was doing that before. And it really took until this long for anyone to start paying attention to the Pope. So,
And I mean, Gregory fucking pays for this because the Empire strikes back.
Very good.
And Henry just occupies Rome, installs his own pope, forcibly retires Gregory.
Yep.
Oh wow.
So this guy that we're talking about, Urban, he's the guy after the like coup replacement pope. He's the Normans put him in there as this kind of like unity candidate to restore the institution in a way that doesn't threaten anybody too much. And so this
Pope Joe Biden, yes,
absolutely,
exactly.
Pope Joe Biden,
it's like
Pope Macron.
Pope.
Yeah, and so like this purely external military thing that both sort of gives the papacy this role of like control over some military affairs, doesn't threaten any European monarchs, and also gets a bunch of the angry sword guys out of Europe, like where they can't come to your house and make you not be pope anymore.
Yeah,
it's the perfect deal. Next slide, please. So,
okay,
Urban,
I got a question.
Yeah, shoot.
What's going on with this picture? Is this medieval? Because we got some perspective going here.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's late. This is late medieval. So judging by it, let me just zoom in. I'm going to call this probably like 15th century or 14th century. We do have perspective, like starting from the 14th century. It is a trick of Protestants to tell you that we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta yell at my art history teachers now.
This is an illustration from the Livre de Passage d'Outre-mer. So 1474, this was done.
Bang. Damn. There you go. Yeah.
But awesome. This is a depiction of the Council of Clermont, which is in 1095. Urban gets a big conference together, gets a synod together, and he's actually a really gifted politician. He issues this big set piece sermon, the gist of which is peace at home, war abroad. Stop fighting your cousin over your castle made of shit in a bog in northern France.
Damn.
Instead,
George Bush right here.
Instead, receive my immediate and personal absolution. And I have a long quote here from what he's sort of supposed to have said, which is, let those who have been accustomed unjustly to wage private warfare against the faithful now go against the infidels and end with victory. This war which should have begun long ago.
You should be reading this in George Bush voice.
Yeah, I concur with that.
Yeah.
Let those who have been robbers now become knights. Let those who have fought their brothers and relatives now fight in a proper way against the barbarians. Let those who have been serving as mercenaries for small pay now obtain an eternal reward. Let those who have been wearing themselves out in both body and soul now work for a double honor. And as you sort of might expect, this brings the fucking house down.
Yeah, people love this shit.
Like, the thing about people chanting Deus vult, God wills it, or mashallah if you're civilized, like, that's not, probably not an invention. Like, this is a genuinely compelling argument. In particular, this thing about, like, oh, you've just been working as, like, a mercenary soldier for nothing. Instead, I'm offering you you probably literally believe, as I do, kingdom of heaven. That's powerful stuff. And this is also not really what's supposed to be happening here. Like, it's sort of a church council is a pretty fucking sedate thing. Like, maybe some monks get into a fist fight about whether or not Jesus is holy bread or not. But, like, it's not, you're not really meant to go, like, invade the fucking Middle East right now.
Oh, that attitude, Alice.
Right, it's sort of
which
a hypothetical
lot of people did not
option.
get the message about, which is cute.
What do you mean by that they didn't get the message?
So a lot of people just fucking go for it. And the ones who just go for it most quickly are commoners.
Oh, we'll get to this in the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got nothing else to do.
Yes. See, this is a really, really dangerous idea to put into the collective mind of Europe in 1095, because Europe in 1095 is fucking miserable. Like, what Urban actually wants is a detachment of the sort of minority of people who are experienced in warfare and, like, nobles who would otherwise be staying home making trouble. He wants them. What he actually gets is, like, an accidental mass mobilization.
You just got the lads. The lads are going out. They're gonna go walk all the way to the Middle East, and then they're gonna go fight some people.
Well, because the thing is, we're talking about this as, like, an era of sort of, like, growing church power, but, like, the church's power doesn't extend that far downwards. And in particular, nobody can really stop you from just preaching shit for a long time. And so weird guys triumph here. Your classical weird guy who has a name like Peter the Hermit or Walter Sans Avoir.
I'm the only guy in the town who receives mail.
The guy who can stand on a soapbox and sort of indifferently knows how to read is able to get up there and say, the Pope has told us that to retake Jerusalem is a holy duty for everyone. It will solve all of your problems. Even if you die in the attempt, you will be guaranteed heaven.
That's a pretty good deal, you know?
Yeah, it sounds about right to me.
I assume, especially if you're subsistence farming shit.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to worry about fucking beets anymore. You just sew this cross on your clothes, and you follow me in this sort of, like, loose procession of tens of thousands of people, maybe, which is a huge number.
I heard medieval peasants had more free time than we do now.
Yeah, they had a life expectancy of 38. So
yeah, and they spend it doing this, the sort of like 1095 freedom convoy.
I'll say this shit one more time, dude.
Because all of these guys, they don't know what they're fucking doing. They just have a vague idea of what the problems are and an even vaguer idea of how to solve them. They're pretty certain that like half the reason all this shit is happening is like Jewish witchcraft. And so
So you're just gonna, not to go behind the product too much, but that's actually what we do. Every so often, Alice and Roz send me a mean Twitter DM that says, "Hey, Jew boy," and then I have to record a podcast. And they chant, "The Jews are our misfortune," as I desperately try to explain Therac 25 or whatever.
I just want to say that probably if I were a medieval peasant at this time, I would have definitely done this. I would have been like, yeah, I'm going to go walk.
Yeah, me too. What else do you do, dude?
Way.
It's either I farm shit beats, you know, and I'm in 9 feet of my own waste, and my life expectancy is 38. Or so I walk.
38, that's generous.
Hey now, like don't make me tap the size. That's not how average age in the Middle Ages.
Okay, yeah.
So like something like 100,000 people, which for the population of Europe in 1095 is a lot of fucking people, just sort of walk east down the Rhine, pogroming any Jews that they find on the way.
Yeah, they do that. They are really a huge fan of that. They're like, hey, there's some infidels right here. Like,
and curiously, neither the local nobility nor the church really like this much. Not out of any great concern for Jews, but more because like we're supposed to be the ones organizing this. Like these guys are fucking serfs. It's like your washing machine deciding to go and invade Jerusalem. You're not supposed to fucking have the capability to do that on your own.
Actually, Roz, I take issue with the idea, Roz, that you would participate in a crusade simply because I've watched you in large crowds, and you don't do so good by and large.
This is true.
You prefer like a depopulated village.
And then he drinks in a corner. I've met you. I've been your best friend for years.
I'm gonna go take a village single-handedly because I'm agoraphobic.
I wish Gigolo hit the pub, and therefore I've laid siege to Damascus.
This sort of like develops into what we would loosely call the People's Crusade, but these people are sort of a very dangerous joke to established power structures. They wander east across Europe. They get to Belgrade. Belgrade won't let them in. They're all starving at this point, and the only way to like feed any kind of army or whatever this is, freedom convoy, is to like buy or steal food, forage. And so they try and steal food from a market in the next town over in Hungary called Zemun. The guards of Zemun not only beat their asses, they take their armor off them and then they hang the armor from the city walls in a kind of like, I don't know how much clearer a message of like, you should not be doing this. You should go home now kind of message.
I think it's funny. They're like, okay, we're not going to kill you. We're going to disarm you though. Because you are idiots.
We're going to like really embarrass you.
Yes.
Like, you're going to wish
we're not
you were
kill
dead.
you. You don't need to die. You just need to stop doing this.
Unfortunately, this does not work.
Stop emailing my wife. Written out in confiscated armor.
This is not a good move, because what then happens is that the Crusaders, the People's Crusade, this mob, they get into a fight that literally starts over a pair of shoes. And this results in a battle where they kill 4,000 people in Zemun and then run east, Belgrade's like guards pursuing them.
Yeah,
maybe they should have killed some of them. Just a couple. Just like prove a point.
Running to Belgrade with Flintstones music in the back. Or no, Scooby-Doo music in the background.
Being pursued by a bunch of like Serb cops. They arrive on the border of the Byzantine Empire.
They were just frightened by the fact that they could use Fork Baby. So, you know.
Yeah. And the Byzantine Empire is like, what the fuck are we gonna do with 100,000 angry dipshits? So Alexios, he lets them in. He has them escorted to the Bosphorus, which divides Europe from Asia. And he says to them, do not cross the Bosphorus. Do not try and fight anybody. Just wait there. Just wait for the like real army that has knights in it, please.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some ambiguity here, right? Because given how dangerous these guys are, it's possible that he doesn't try to stop them that hard. It is possible that he's like, no, don't try and cross the Bosphorus. That would be terrible. Don't try and do that. Yeah, guess what happens? They cross the fucking Bosphorus.
That's the thing we told them not to do.
Oh, wait a minute.
They take, I think it's Nicaea, which is the nearest Seljuk capital, and the Seljuks immediately just encircle and besiege them. The Seljuks do not understand what is going on at all. They think they're like Byzantine mercenaries or something. They don't get what the deal is with these guys. They don't make any sense.
None of them got in the mail yet.
Yeah, and so
they invented the telegraph.
They should have been. Yeah, they've been able to telegraph them. Army of idiots coming! Stop! It's not
just
my
take their
fault.
armor. Stop.
So when
just send them home.
when the siege ends, the ones who fight or the ones who, when they're captured, refuse to convert to Islam, they just get hacked to pieces. You probably kill like 60,000 people in one battle, and I use the term battle very loosely.
That's a lot of people.
It's just a stupid story from start to finish. And that's the People's Crusade. Next slide, please.
I mean, truly some stupid shit. I just want to make it incredibly clear that some people are dumb as fuck. And if it wasn't for all the murder, it would be funny. But there it is. Yeah.
So, meanwhile,
I mean, back then, you murdered so many people on a daily basis. It's still kind of funny.
Yeah. Well.
so meanwhile, back at the Seljuk Empire, the problem with being in power for too long is that it's not just a mechanic and paradox games. You do kind of become decadent and like depraved and unpopular.
Alice here still trying to start
and fractious and weak because you get like competing power bases that emerge.
I will speak for all of us, including Dr. Eleanor, when we do say buy us Porsches, though.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to become decadent.
I'm trying so hard to become decadent. My God.
Mercedes.
Dr. Eleanor actually gets a sedan chair made of Porsches.
Yeah, that's what I want. I just want that and several himbos to carry me around. Thank you.
Which I think you deserve.
Thank you. Me too.
This kind of like fractiousness was how the Seljuks had beaten the Ghaznavids, and now it's sort of coming for them. And it's sort of everyone has a go at them, like over the course of the next 200 years, essentially, like over various periods, like the Turkmen, the Mongols themselves at some point. But we have one of these years which really sort of affects things, which is 1092. In 1092, the sort of nominal emir, the Shahanshah of the Seljuk Empire, Malik Shah I, he dies. The same year, his like power behind the throne, eminence grise, Richelieu type guy, Nizam al-Mulk dies. The Fatimid Caliph dies, and the Seljuk Empire is like split between Malik Shah's 4 idiot sons who all hate each other and just a bunch of other dudes. And crucially, they're also now overconfident because they've been invaded by Christians for like the first time other than the Byzantines, and they've just massacred all of them. So why worry? And unfortunately, this happens just in time for next slide, please. The crusade with the guys who actually know how to fight a war shows up, the one with the princes in it and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy.
This comes as a total surprise to the Seljuks.
Now, here the perspective is a little fucked up. I will say that.
This is meant to be the siege of Antioch. Antioch is like essentially the first big city on the way down through to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
You can see that Antioch here is in France and is a French city.
Right.
Because
you're good.
So like, who are these guys? Who are these crusaders?
Marine Le Pen, of course.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I mean,
in this case,
A lot of Normans. It's just a lot of Normans.
I heard, Dr. Eleanor, I swear to God, I heard Mormons, and I was just like,
hello, my name is Elder Folk. I would like to share with you this book of Jesus Christ.
Here we are. Got some Native Americans out here, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't silence indigenous voices in medieval history.
The Normans fucking get everywhere. So there's Italo-Normans, there's like Franco-Normans. This is a bit early for like Anglo-Normans though. But you have some very powerful like French nobles. You have some Flemish. Essentially, this sort of shakes out along national lines until you end up with 4 different armies. All sort of speaking different languages, but they actually work together quite well, relatively speaking.
They're like, point me at a brown person, guys, and I'm good to go. I'll do the murdering.
I mean, the problem that they have is still the same one that the People's Crusade had, which is that Urban's mass mobilization had worked too well, and a lot of people shouldn't be there who are. Like, they have a huge like camp train that follows them of people who like can't fight, people who are just like there to be religious, people who are just there to make their fortunes, people who are just there. Like, this is again probably like 100,000 people, and I can't stress enough how much bigger a number that is in the 11th century. So also we should talk about their motivations, and we kind of hinted at this earlier, which is that you gotta take them at their word for the most part. Like, a lot of these guys gave up a huge amount of feudal power in Europe to go and do this, and it really didn't benefit them much at all.
Well, they got into heaven guaranteed.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of have to assume that a lot of the people, like, really, absolutely, unquestioningly believed that. I mean, there's some who kind of like are out for money. Like, in particular, we can talk about one of the Crusader leaders, a guy called Bohemund of Taranto, who is one of these Italo-Norman guys.
I just love the Italo-Normans, just the most batshit names. Always beefing with Pope. Always have too many of Bath. It always great name. Good job, everybody. No notes.
Yeah, Bohemund of Taranto's deal is that he wants to get to the first big city he can take, and then take it, and then just own it. And that's Antioch, so this works out very well for him.
I feel like the vibe on this picture here. Look how big the cavalry are compared to all the other. Look how tiny these guys are as they climb this ladder.
Yeah, I love it.
This is great. Everyone, this is great. It's not like 4.5 feet tall.
Yeah, something like it.
Obviously.
There's such a tiny man running around having crusades. Just some buddies, and they're all 90 inches tall.
We sent our tiniest
90,
men over.
Not 90. I meant 19. I said 90. That's like 7.5 feet.
So to get to Antioch, they have to go through the Byzantine Empire, where Emperor Alexios is once again like, yeah, I don't really trust you guys or like you guys. Please return any Byzantine territory you find. And they're like, yeah, sure, okay.
We're definitely doing that, buddy.
Yeah.
They enter the Sultanate of Rome. Its leader, a guy called Aslan, he's literally 18 years old.
One of the boss's names on record again. Come on.
Yeah, and he's having defeated the peasants, has now fucked off to Anatolia to fight somebody else. Like, this is going to be a recurring theme, is that like almost every Muslim leader at any time during the Crusades is more interested in fighting other Muslims than they are the Crusaders. The Crusaders are this sideshow that's happening. So he comes back from Anatolia to find his city of Nicaea and his wife and children just taken out from under him. And sort of
a tough way to come back to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the Christians, they take Nicaea, they march across Anatolia, feeling quite miserable, dying of disease, being sort of lightly harassed by Arslan's men, who are trying to work out where to do their big set-piece ambush battle, which they do at a place called Dorylaeum, and this is the battle that's on the right here. And this is the sort of most militarily interesting bit of the whole Crusades for me, because this is the real fucking culture clash shit. You have a bunch of Turkic horse archers doing hit and run attacks. They sort of herd the Crusaders into a big circle with the like armored knights on the outside. And so they're just getting like peppered with arrows. like the sort of like heavily armored man-at-arms thing is also foreign to the Turks. They don't really get what's going on here. And so you get this sort of inconclusive 7-hour long engagement where these guys are just like riding horses around the outside trying to kill guys in armor with like lucky shots. Some of them get like provoked to break formation and get slaughtered. Some of them like bleed to death. Some of them die of heat stroke probably. But yeah, the usual. And it's just two sort of ideas of warfare which just kind of bounce off of each other because no one really has worked out how either of the other ones work.
So we did some ironclad shit.
Yeah, very much so.
They could have invented the telegraph and got this thing done pretty quick. It's not difficult, guys.
I think what the Crusaders should have had was gunboats, lots of them.
There you go.
Yeah, if only they had been smart enough to invent the gunboat.
This whole thing would have been more interesting as a naval engagement.
That's
I
true. What ultimately happens is a second Crusader army like shows up, attacks the Turks from the back, and suddenly things are very different because they're fine with like riding around in a circle. They're not fine with the guys in the big armor burning their camp and having to fight them with swords. That's not like what they signed up for. And so they cut their losses and run, and the Crusaders win-ish. They go on to Antioch, right? And Antioch has these Byzantine walls. It has a citadel on a big cliff. It's a pain in the fucking dick to besiege. It's
especially
only ever
you've been having your dick kicked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you've been walking for 1,800 or however many miles. They've been doing cock and ball torture to you the entire time. You just want to lay down, have a nap, and die at 38. Which apparently is wrong.
So I mean, Antioch's only ever fallen to siege by treachery before. You get a guy on the inside, you pay him off to open a gate for you, and then that's how you make your entrance. So they besiege Antioch, and like no guy is forthcoming, and people start dying of starvation. To which the Crusader response is, you know why this is happening? It's because we've got too many fucking women.
How many women are with them?
A lot.
Surprising number.
Are we doing like when it's are we doing? I assume whole families
are
coming on this thing.
Like it's really interesting because like the Crusades, you even have more of it than you ordinarily would do because women also feel called by the whole Deus Vult thing, right?
Sure.
But also, for the medieval period, in general, armies have a lot more families attached to them when you think they're called. A lot of time we call them camp followers. Yeah. And they'll be like, people bring their wives, they'll bring their kids. There's usually like a bunch of sex workers following them around. There's tons of women around the joint at any given time, is the point.
Yeah, which all of the like weirder Christian guys with them are like, this is the reason why we're dying of starvation. It's because of like, it's a very, very direct relationship with sin. And this is something that recurs a lot with these guys. It's like, if we are losing, it is a direct punishment for our earthly failings, such as tolerating women. So they ban women from the camp. And things look a bit.
That's better than what I thought they were gonna do.
Yeah, do they just like go home or what happens?
I assume that this is in practice more like you have to go camp further away from me, so I don't have to see the titties. But like it's starting to look a bit dubious, and people start deserting. Most notably, one of the leaders, one of the Flemish ones, a guy called Stephen of Blois. He manages to desert twice, which is very funny. He deserts, gets to the sea, thinks, oh shit, maybe I should go back, goes back, and then deserts again.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I would not want to be on this trip either.
But eventually,
the plot to Robin Hood Men in Tights, right?
Hey, that's another movie you've seen. We're up to 12, dude.
Well done.
Eventually, they do.
I'll watch every movie by Mel Brooks.
Eventually, they do find a guy. I think he's supposed to be an Armenian guy, so a huge elf of that community. But like, he and his men agree to open the gates in exchange for not being massacred. They open the gates and are massacred.
That's tough.
That was a bad decision right there.
Yeah. The Crusaders and all of the Christian inhabitants of Antioch, which is, a surprising amount, just all get together and massacre all the Muslim ones. And the city is taken just in time for the Seljuk reinforcements to arrive and trap the Crusaders inside Antioch. And now they're starving again. Just
taking a lot of L's.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing, right? Now they're sort of locked inside the impregnable panic room, with no supply routes. At this point, before I go into what happened during this second siege of Antioch,
have they not found the holy hand grenade?
We're about to get there, but first,
I actually have another question, which is on topic. Even you had mentioned a few minutes ago that all the Muslims were more interested in fighting each other than the Christians.
Sure.
Why?
Because think of it this way, right? It's a lot like the Crusades are a lot like if aliens invaded season 2 of Game of Thrones. It's
okay.
All right.
You're really invested in all of your plotting, and then these weirdos fucking show up in a bit of the world which is, like, relatively speaking, only important religiously. Like, if you want to talk about big cities like Damascus, which is slightly out of the way, Aleppo, which is even more out of the way, Baghdad, which is way out of the way, and then down through like to Mecca and Medina. So like, this isn't really that important a place necessarily.
Okay.
And also there's a lot more sort of personal enmity and spite. In particular on the Muslim side, this idea of like jihad, the idea of religious war, is not a really popular one at this point. In particular, jihad against Christians, who are, after all, people of the book, and therefore spiritually better off to the fucking Shia as far as you're concerned, right? Like, because those guys are only pretending to be Muslims and they're hypocrites, and that makes them worse, and therefore you have to fight them.
Yeah.
Or, whatever other sort of sect of polytheists who are way worse in the sort of conception.
Catholics, No, I agree.
Now, hold on a second here.
No, so like it's
we'll do the bonus episode on Judaism eventually, I promise.
You're more concerned with those things, and also with like whether or not your brother is trying to have you strangled, than you are with these guys. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I do have a slight diversion.
Thanks, Alice.
No worries. Which is, you recall Brother Stephen from our previous episode together.
No.
I had to find a bear story.
Thank you.
I really did, and I struggled, to be honest. The only thing I found involving Crusades and a bear is, next slide, please. One of the leaders of the Crusades, one of these Normans, Godfrey of Bouillon, he fights a bear that looks like a big dog. On the way to Antioch, a pilgrim is like attacked by a bear in Anatolia.
Good.
and he like comes to save the pilgrim and fights this bear single-handedly, although it kills his horse.
The bear is here to introduce you to the concept of castle doctrine.
Yes,
that's right. That's right.
That's Brother Esteban. I don't know what Stephen is in any other languages, so I had to go with Esteban.
So all of these guys,
the grove of trees, and it's going down this hill.
Yeah,
and you got the trees in the distance. Then you got the sort of the water out here.
The nice, quiet, bucolic scene interrupted by your friend getting his face shredded by a bear.
In the scriptorium, like, brother, have you seen a bear before? And the guy goes, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely, I've seen a bear before.
And I can vaguely do perspective. I have a vague concept of it.
So
it really looks like a Newfoundland, doesn't it?
Oh God, it really does.
It does look like a Newfoundland.
It just wants to be friends.
I promise. Bouillon stabbing a dog. Terrible.
Yeah, and then all the bear's friends came back, and the bear murdered the man. Murdered all his friends, and the bear is known today as a hero of Islam and a wise student of the Prophet.
That's right.
And we must honor the bear.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Next slide, please. So all of these guys are locked inside Antioch, inside their impregnable panic room. They're all starving to death. And this curious thing happens when you have a bunch of religiously minded people.
Is this a screenshot from fucking Final Fantasy?
Yes, it is. Yes. Because I'm going to talk about the Holy Lance. So a bunch of religious obsessives all starving to death. For some reason, they start having visions. I can't explain it either. Could be any number of reasons why this might happen.
Wild shit.
And so one of them, one of these, again, like sort of low-level preachers called Peter Bartholomew, gets a vision of St. Andrew telling him that the Holy Lance, the one that Jesus got stabbed with on the cross, is coincidentally in Antioch. And so he miraculously finds a spear point in a cesspit, which is fucking gross. He also, this is the funniest part to me, when he finds it, he gets another vision of St. Andrew, who tells all of these already starving guys to fast for 5 days in celebration. Just really adding insult to injury.
Yeah, like, I mean,
it's not like they had a choice.
Yeah, it's quite funny to me because ordinarily this is the sort of thing that would like it not count. You know, like fasting only counts if you've got an opportunity to not fast in general. So that's kind of funny, but okay.
The man before you drops his holy lance, pick it up and keep going.
So the guy who is
can't
like,
pick it up and keep going. They haven't been eating for like 3 weeks, dude.
Just stumble over it and keep going. The guy who is like religiously in charge here.
Ground lance. I have the human bungee stick.
The papal legate is a French bishop called Adhemar de Puy, and this is an interesting guy. He immediately goes to himself, this guy is a charlatan, that is bullshit, you have found that in a toilet.
Yeah.
they had toilets.
The reason why he disbelieves it is because there's already a Holy Lance relic in Constantinople, which they fucking went through on the way there.
Yeah.
But
no, this is the other Holy Lance. This one's in Apocrypha. Don't worry about that.
You can't do like shards of the True Cross when it's like it's one lance. But the Crusaders are desperate and they need something, and so Adhemar kind of like swallows his principles a little bit, right? He has all the gates locked and he parades this lance in front of the people, and he goes, "Yeah, it is a miracle, actually." Also, at some point during this, he gets plague, which is a lesson about, like, you know, doing mass events in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so when the Seljuks get there, he leads all of these starving, delusional, plague-ridden weirdos out into battle against the Seljuks, who, again, mostly don't want to fucking be there. Yeah. There's like 5 or 6 different emirs who are all there sort of broadly against their will. None of them want to weaken their own forces because, like, if you break yourself fighting these guys, then you're just going to get, like, eaten by the other guy as soon as you get back home.
Exactly.
And so, like, the Crusaders want to fight. They have no option other than to fight, and no one wants to really fight them back. And so people start deserting on the Seljuk side. Eventually this peels off into the Emir of Damascus, who is by far the sort of biggest component, just going home, and the whole army falls apart. Meanwhile, the Crusaders are like hallucinating the presence of saints amongst them. They're like,
we've all been there.
Hacking people apart.
We've
with
all gone off our
sabers.
meds for a little too long.
Yeah, it just happens. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and they win. They fucking win.
I believed I was Jesus for like 3.5 hours during a mental break, and I sort of had to talk myself out of it on the way to the hospital.
Yeah, and now imagine if you had a bunch of God's representatives on Earth telling you were right.
Oh no, I can't handle that sort of power, Alice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like they fucking win the Battle of Antioch. Bohemund of Taranto gets his reward, which is to establish the Principality of Antioch. Adhemar fucking dies of plague.
Owned.
Peter Bartholomew is forced to undergo an ordeal of fire to establish the veracity of the Holy Lance, which is essentially like put your hands in this pit of hot coals, and if the Holy Lance is like, you know, really a relic and you're telling the truth, you will not be burned. And he was burned to death.
That's pretty funny.
Which sort of fucking settles that one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the guy who arranged that little trial is a guy called Arnulf of Schock.
Come on, Arnulf. All right.
Arnulf of Schaut given the nickname Malicorn, meaning bad haircut. Notoriously sexually licentious with Muslim women, and repeated subject of rude marching songs by the knights, which I find very funny.
Please, do any of those survive? Some of them,
no.
please.
No,
damn it!
Oh, damn.
Just imagine a song about a guy with a bad haircut who fucks too much.
That's soldiers never change.
So the good times roll on to next slide, please.
Yes.
Jerusalem, the most important city in the world, but only for these guys.
Ancient time, walked upon England's mountain screen. So forth.
A haunting performance.
As we saw earlier, Jerusalem has now been taken back by the Fatimids, who are even less prepared for the Crusaders' whole deal. Both during the siege of Antioch and as they approach Jerusalem, they keep sending them embassies where they're like, yeah, no, we'll totally sign whatever you want to protect Christian pilgrims so long as we can keep Jerusalem. And all of these guys who are just coming off of like a starvation plus winning a battle high are like sort of like one pupil way bigger than the other.
You'll give me what? Do you have any food?
Absolutely not. No. There's like, bear in mind, we started with 100,000 of these guys. We're down to maybe 12,000. A lot of these guys have died of plague, have died of starvation, have gone home.
The few, the proud, these idiots.
Yeah, and because the telegraph hasn't been invented yet, the first thing you do when there's like even the slightest possibility that you might have to fight a battle is you send the fastest messenger you have to be like, get back here with the largest set of reinforcements you possibly can. The Fatimids have done this, which means that the Crusaders are like very much on the clock, right? They've done their special move, right? Twice in a row, they have like, by incompetence, forced themselves into a point of total desperation where they have to fight and win or they'll all die. And so they fight and they win. They besiege Jerusalem, a bunch more of them die of heat and thirst. And so the only thing left for them to do is this really uncharacteristically fast assault of the city with siege engines, which they do. They have a sort of a motivational vision of Adamar, the guy who died of plague, telling them to like besiege the walls like Jericho, which they do. And they just slaughter everybody.
Some dude chanting in hoc as he vomits up his own small intestine.
Very much.
Pretty much, yeah. Like
the sack of Jerusalem is it's very much what you would call war crimes, but then and now, incidentally, this isn't something like this was something that defied the expected norms of warfare at the time, but it's Turk, so who cares? But yeah, no, just burn down a lot of stuff, kill a lot of people, lasts 2-3 days, maybe a week at the outside. They sack Jerusalem by far worse than Atkins did, which makes the whole thing wildly disproportionate.
And their own sources talk about how bad and brutal it is. Like their own sources are like they were wading in blood up to their knees. And that's probably an exaggeration, but even Christian sources are like, I don't know, guys, seems a bit far out.
So I assume we're talking obviously murders of civilians. I assume mass enslavement, all sorts of hideous stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Like to the point where the guys who encouraged it were like, Jesus, what the fuck? So that
the guy.
It actually says that in the beautiful illuminated manuscript.
Yeah, exactly.
You can see in the Met cloisters.
I believe the guy who you see on the white horse T-posing, that's Raymond IV of Toulouse. And he's sort of like one of the big French nobles who's like sort of is broadly expect to become a big political force if this works out for him. In the course of the sack of Jerusalem, he loses an eye in a fist fight, literally over getting into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Wait, Jesus loves that shit.
He gets the nickname Monoculus from this, incidentally.
Yeah, I like that the nicknames are not like especially clever or fun. Well, they are funny,
no,
but just like that's a guy with one eye.
Yeah, Monoculus, one-eyed.
Hey, Monoculus.
Yeah, Monoculus sounds great. I like Monoculus.
Call me One-Eyed Steve behind my back and to your face.
So
Monoculus is a lot better than One-Eyed Steve. Let's get real.
So Raymond does this thing, right? He does the sort of like refusing the crown thing of being like, I am way too pious to ever consider becoming king of Jerusalem. What he's expecting them to do is to go, no, we insist you must become king of Jerusalem, but they fucking don't, and he spends the rest of his life sulking about it. He just leaves Jerusalem immediately.
Owned.
Next slide, please, because what happens is we establish these Crusader kingdoms, 4 of them in total: Edessa, Antioch, Tripoli, and Jerusalem. 4 Frankish feudal kingdoms just sort of transplanted accidentally into the Near East.
Is that where Tripoli is?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know
the Tripoli that's in Libya.
Yeah, the Tripoli.
This is the county of Tripoli.
Yeah. So technically the first guy in charge
the county, but not the city of Tripoli.
Yeah, they're not
that's right.
Not the consolidated city county of Tripoli.
City of Tripoli.
So
Libya, getting
the city
tax
supervisor,
bills and being furious about it.
The city supervisor of Jerusalem, city and county, is the bear guy from earlier, Godfrey of Bouillon.
Oh no, he survived.
Yeah, but he does. Yeah. He also does the thing of like refusing the title of king. He's like, no one can be king in Jerusalem but Christ.
Shut up, dweeb.
We know how well like refusing the title of king goes. Like everyone after him to rule in Jerusalem is king of Jerusalem. They're all fucking called Baldwin. I can't tell them apart.
Baldwin. Like they're all called Baldwin.
And we're back to the Crusader now.
Yes. Anyway, so the Baldwin Locomotive Works, I think, was probably one of the best steam locomotive manufacturers in Philadelphia. Actually, it was the only one in Philadelphia, so that's not saying much. Anyway.
So we get into an area of very live historical scholarship here. You can get into a lot of fights as a historian like this because the sort of question of these states existed for 200 years. And we still can't really agree on how they were run, right? Because on the one hand, like all these guys know how to do is European feudalism. All they know how to do is baron, levy taxes, and lie.
Eat hot chip, Baron. It's crazy. How Dr. Eleanor got her PhD, actually, as we know, by fist fighting her advisor.
That's true. Yeah. You know, they say that, you know, it's a PhD defense, but I say you got to go in there with a PhD offense.
I love just giving some like 80-year-old advisor like a right hook to the jaw and be like, they call me doctor.
Yeah. Go home and tell him a girl beat your ass.
So that's sort of a problem here, though, which is these guys want to do European feudalism. The problem with European feudalism is you need like some kind of power base of lords. They don't have a lot of them because a lot of the guys who like a lot of the knights and stuff who once they captured Jerusalem, they just went back home. They didn't want to stay.
Do they have to import lords?
They're constantly trying to import lords.
How do they? Like, do we know how they try to?
What they really go through to just get laid? Oh, yeah.
Because these places like. They end up with these kind of like green zones almost of like, you know, Jerusalem or Acre or Antioch, which is some hundreds or thousands of Europeans who don't really take that much interest in the local population so long as they pay their tax. It's like they don't really want to do colonialism in the sense of like you maximize the resources you can extract and send back to the mother country. They're not really sending them anywhere.
Oldie Burger King down there.
You beat me to the joke. You oldie Green Zone Burger King.
I mean, what they want to do is plot against each other, especially by and against their women.
Oh, dudes love to plot.
Incidentally,
this is like homies getting the girls involved to lay a honey trap.
all of these girls are named Alice, incidentally. Most notably Alice of Antioch, but there's like a shit ton of other Alices. They're all plotting against each other. They're all trying to have each other killed. And nominally, the reason for their existence and the way that they can keep pulling in both money and also new sort of European aristocracy is to safeguard European pilgrims, Christian pilgrims.
You got to think the Burger King back then ran on the feudal system. You had a Burger King that was the main franchise,
right?
But then you had several burger vassals,
lords. Yeah.
Burger levy.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I was asking about like importation of lords. Is that like, could people basically say to someone, I guess, below the nobility, like, hey, if you come here, sort of some sort of Teach for America scheme, but with imperialism? Is that a thing that happened, or am I just crazy?
No, that's like definitely a thing that happened. They were constantly trying to get people to come in, and there's like there are guys who are writing full propaganda about like, oh, it's great, we're all having a wonderful time out here in the Ultramare. We simply love it. You could come out too. It's great. Like, probably
timeshare presentation for my feudal kingdom.
Yeah, like
we need someone who knows how to fucking brew beer, right?
Yeah. We 100% have these docks.
Get me some Germans. Get me some Germans.
Yeah, and like the other thing is, I read possibly the bitchiest art history article I've ever seen, which is that the Crusader kingdoms, for 200 years, are remarkable.
Perspective.
Remarkable for how little art of any kind they produced, just because they weren't successful enough at getting artisans to produce, like to move there and fucking make it. Like, all of these churches fall into horrible disrepair because no one wants to be a roofer in Jerusalem.
They're like, they all they really know how to do is take over. They don't know how to rule, and they don't know how to like make some kind of life there. The only thing they had was the whole sacking part. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but they're good at taking over it. But it turns out they couldn't, make it work.
Yeah,
I feel like there are some parallels to some things here.
Yeah, they must expand, and so they're constantly. This is also a great way of like dragging in new sort of young European nobles, is by being like, listen, you want to be the fucking guy who conquers Aleppo for us, or who conquers Damascus for us. You can make your fortune. None of them ever do, right?
Yeah.
But they constantly sort of launch these sort of like piecemeal, expansive things. Also,
hey, come here. That's great. That sounds great. You're a noble? Oh, you're 12. Oh, that's old enough. Come over.
By the time you get here, you'll be 13. It'll be right.
Welcome, our child king.
This is also a huge dub for Italians. Because all of these kingdoms, you'll notice,
Italian win
can only be reliably supplied from the Mediterranean. And so if you are an Italian merchant republic, if you're Genoa, for instance, you are fucking printing, you're coining money. Like within the Kingdom of Jerusalem alone, there were like Italian concessions, like a Hansestadt, like inviolate, like Italian ruled areas with their own systems of law, because they like had a total monopoly on everything coming in.
Is this like the Hanseatic League, but on the Mediterranean?
Yes. Yeah, basically, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And so these, some are more successful than others. Like Jerusalem's better than any of the others. Edessa's kind of worse, but like they try and consolidate themselves as Christian kingdoms on a European model. You get like codes of laws, like the Council of Nablus, which is a very Byzantine sort of code of law, which is like, we got to do some like facial mutilation as punishment for crimes.
Oh boy,
things like this. But like,
they could all be Bond stars.
we also for the first time
like that, man,
get an idea of, next slide please, what if we armed some of these monks that we've got wandering around not doing anything productive.
It's a picture of me back in Catholic school.
So this is the period of the foundation of various Christian military orders.
Is this slideshow seriously fucking called Lads on Tour?
It's seriously called Lads on Tour. That's what this is about. It's about lads.
What? You don't like the lads? Woo!
Yeah.
Woo, lads.
Yeah.
Oh wow! So, everyone on this podcast just has a beautiful singing voice.
That's right.
So sometimes these develop out of a functional purpose, like you want to provide medical care to pilgrims who are sick or who are leprous, right? You get the Hospitallers, or you get the Order of Saint Lazarus, who, for my money, have the coolest heraldry. Sometimes they have a common geographic origin, like, hey, all of us are, well, not German, because German doesn't exist yet, but we're all Teutons. Let's be the Teutonic Knights, right? And this is sort of like this huge win-win-win, right? Because the church likes this, sort of, because it's like subjugating secular warfare to the Pope. The Crusader kingdoms also like this because it's free real estate, it's free knights. They don't have to fucking build and maintain a hospital. That's an act of Christian charity, and therefore all these guys in armor can do it. Perfect. And the Christian military orders themselves love this shit because as much as they're sort of nominally obligated to the Pope, like in practice, the Pope doesn't really like oversee them. And so a lot of them use this to become extremely wealthy by virtue of what we would now call side hustles and Sigma grind sets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the Knights Templar sort of inventing forms of banking. I think like the Hospitallers or possibly like one of the others invent fulling, like they bring the technique of fulling wool to England, which makes them tremendously wealthy.
The technique of what?
Fulling. It's a thing that you do with wool. I did not inquire further.
It's a thing that you do with wool in order to then get it like prepped and ready to make cloth.
Okay. Oh, I see. It's like you become an interstitial processor, right?
Yeah, like it's like washing and then pounding it. So it sounds like a good date, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and you have sort of administrative capacity contained with these as well, because it's not just like laity. It's also you have monks who might like be familiar with reading and writing, and who are therefore able to like clerk and teach others to clerk, and therefore keep things like ledgers, and therefore can like debts, and so on and so on and so on.
Gonna invent adding machines soon.
Yeah, exactly.
And the telegraph.
Yes, and the telegraph. Which is what they needed.
It's now time for me to do some more great man history. Next slide, please, because a second Turk
Dear
has struck
enemies
the
of
Crusader
Christianity,
states.
you a bitch. Stop.
So this is Imad
Strong
ad-Din,
letter to follow. Stop.
Imad ad-Din Zengi. He is Lord of Mosul.
And he's also
in
Lord
Iraq.
of rocking this turban. Come on. All
looks
right.
fucking great.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
Absolutely whipping it.
I got the
I believe that
pinstripes
I
too.
could draw about as well as whoever did this could.
So there are two things that you need to know about
You're doing
Zengi.
a modern art argument right there, Liam.
My kid could draw this.
My kid could draw. Yeah, I could draw this. Well, did you?
Well, you didn't.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
Yes, this is mine. This is actually my drawing, and I would like it back, please.
Wow.
Okay, sorry.
I don't like.
It's
an
an
good
NFT.
job. I really like this drawing. That's a good one.
Thank you, Dr.
Really
Eleanor.
nailed the turban.
I live and die on your praise.
So two things about Zengi, right, to know. Thing number one, he hates the Crusaders. Thing number two, he hates Damascus way more than he hates the Crusaders.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a recurring theme. Like the Crusaders are sort of a distant second priority. In 1128, Zengi takes Aleppo, and it sets up this cold war between him and Damascus. And eventually, both he and whatever fucking Baldwin is in charge of Jerusalem this week try and take Damascus. Neither succeeds. Damascus allies with Jerusalem. Prince Jocelyn, cool name, of Edessa.
Great name. Yeah.
Goes to try and fight Zengi with an allied force of Artukid Turks, because this is the other thing. Like, we think about the Crusades as like it's Christian versus Muslim. Bullshit. These guys allied across religious lines all the time.
This kind of feels like an everyone versus everyone situation.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So Jocelyn goes out to sort of fight Zengi with these Seljuks.
I have a question real quick, Alice.
Yeah.
did Crusaders? Was there ever like a time where they tried to ally themselves with Muslims sort of as quick as possible? If your goal is to just take over a city and administer it, was that ever a thing? Like, I'm going to get and talk to the Muslims first?
Actually, this is a really interesting question because this was how the ruler of Damascus became so powerful and so effective, was because where there were areas that were sort of in dispute between the two, they would institute something called a condominium, which building condominiums on the Syrian border, which is
that's literally a hell of an HOA.
It's literally a power sharing agreement, which is something that you think of as being like way later in history, but that's exactly what it is. So yeah, they were perfectly capable of dialogue with each other in that sense when it was convenient. It just often wasn't.
Okay.
So
directly where like the condo, the etymology of the condo is, because when you buy a condo, it's like power sharing agreement with the people who actually run the building, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of you might be Turks, some of them might not be.
That's terrifying.
So
taking the holy the holy lance into my HOA meeting to prove my point about non-native grasses.
So holy hand grenade.
so Jocelyn goes out to fight Zengi, leaves Edessa totally undefended. And Zengi just goes around him and takes Edessa, takes his whole city and kingdom out from under him. Just
what'd you say? Oh, king shit.
Yeah. This causes panic in Jerusalem, panic in Europe. Zengi is not a humble man, so he immediately has himself declared king of victory, defender of the faith.
King of victory fucking rules. I will say that.
And he probably buys himself a nicer turban just in time for the fucking haters in Damascus to have him assassinated by his own slave.
Cowards.
Yeah.
Terrifying. I have a question. Edessa with an E. Where is that?
Yes.
That's not related
if you
Odessa
go back
with an
to if you go back to the map, you can see it's sort of like what's now, I guess, northern Syria.
Okay.
I don't even know what you'd call any of this shit with its modern name.
I learned a lot on the show, but I do like that Roz and I are truly the idiots in this episode. We're just like, please explain these geopolitical events here. Like, I'm 5
no,
years
trust
old.
me, I learned all of this shit yesterday. So Zengi dies. He's succeeded by his son, Nur-ad-Din, which means Jewel of Faith. Cool name.
Great name.
That's
after
really
this,
good.
This is the Zengid dynasty. But like the thing about Zengi being dead is it doesn't fucking calm anything down. It's like Pancho Villa, right? If this guy can ever have existed in the first place, the time has come for a punitive expedition.
Oh boy!
And so the time has come for next slide, please. Crusade 2.
The crusading.
It is
electric boogaloo. Except it's not electric because then it'd have a telegraph.
It is now time.
Coordinated this much better.
It is now time to retake Edessa. And then everybody in Europe has the exact same question that you two just had. What the fuck is Edessa? Where is that? I don't care. And so immediately the vibe shifts to it is time to take Damascus. Which we
could find on a map. God damn it!
Which was Jerusalem's ally against the guy that they're trying to fight the crusade against. It just idiotic.
It's also this is the one that Eleanor of Aquitaine is involved in, and she's all like, "We should probably go talk to my uncle who lives over there." And her husband Louis is like, "No, absolutely not. What are you fucking you uncle? You fucking your uncle? Oh, wow. Oh, what, we got to ask your uncle? Why? Because you're fucking him?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's right. I'm fucking my uncle." And then he's like, "Well, I am not talking to you anymore." And anyway, they all get massacred.
I too have seen A Simple Favor starring Blake Lively, and
also some of them start believing that there's a mystical Christian king called Prester John who might help us.
Oh yeah, I just heard about this the other day.
Take this as an example of how sort of closed the world is, that they don't actually know how many Crusader kingdoms there are.
They're like, dude, he lives down in Ethiopia. He definitely digs our vibe, and he's coming. He's definitely coming, right?
Damascus is also the subject of the only facetious statement in the Bible.
Huh. What's that?
There's this is from Mark Twain. There's a segment in the Bible that refers to the street called Straight in Damascus. And the thing is, the straight street in Damascus is incredibly crooked. It has many curves.
I think there's another bit of sarcasm in the Bible, because Jesus does jokingly say to a guy, "Behold, an Israelite in whom there is no guile," which I kind of like.
Yeah, don't worry. Israelis are, and I say this as a Jewish person, the worst fucking people on earth. Irrespective of the apartheid.
I've heard that verse explained to me as a joke to the effect of, "Hey, an honest Jew," right? Like that's
Come on, Jesus.
I'm gonna have to get the discourse hat out.
We cancel Jesus. Yeah,
get the discourse hat.
So we're about to talk about.
Do you still have the discourse hat?
Yeah, the discourse hat is still sitting on the bookcase in the living room.
Oh, okay, right where I left it.
We got to talk about a recurring theme here, and the thing that made this so fucking irritating to research, which is war never changes. The Crusades never change. Everyone is using the same playbook forever, and they just repeat the same things. The same thing happens like 6 times across 200 years.
They love doing it, man.
Yeah, and so despite this being 50 years after Crusade 1, it plays out remarkably similarly. Up to and including walk east along the Rhine trying to pogrom all the Jews. In this case,
doing that. We just want to be left alone. All we've wanted for like 5,000 years, besides the war crimes we did in the Torah, is just to be left alone. And the Canaanites had it coming. The Canaanites had it coming.
In this instance, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux calms it down before it gets too pogromy.
Thanks,
but it's
Saint
still
Bernard.
They named the dog after him in tribute.
He's a real dickhead.
Named a senator after him.
Withdrawn.
So
how is he a real dickhead?
Well, he's part of the reason why, like, for example, all of Abelard's works get burnt. And granted, Abelard was also a real dickhead, and that's the major reason why they burnt all of his works. But they acted like he was doing heresy when he wasn't, but it just nobody liked Abelard. And he also talked a lot of smack to Eleanor of Aquitaine and told her that she needs to be meeker and more subservient to the will of God.
I would hate to be told to be meeker.
Yeah.
Dr. Eleanor, didn't you just say not 2 minutes ago that she was fucking her uncle?
She's not fucking her uncle.
We also got to talk about some gay shit. Because I had to find something gay in this. So the Crusaders go to Constantinople. Once again, the Byzantines are very much not happy with all of these fucking weirdos loitering around with swords. Manuel I, still emperor, they pillage one of his palaces, basically, kind of by accident, just because they're foraging, whatever. Also, everyone is insanely petty. The Holy Roman Emperor Conrad III is there. He calls Manuel I King of the Greeks rather than Emperor of the Romans, and he takes that very personally.
Understandable.
He also really doesn't appreciate this German guy calling himself Holy Roman Emperor, especially in Constantinople. I mean, Conrad III, possibly the first guy in history to do the "is neither holy nor Roman nor an empire" bit. So Manuel's response is to essentially use heavy cavalry as riot cops to try and physically move the Crusaders east, which provokes a sort of minor battle, which the Byzantines win.
Kievan Rus. Kievan Rus.
They chanted that the whole way.
Consider this Conrad and Manuel's meet cute. We will get back to this. So the Crusaders enter Anatolia, and the Turks use the same playbook. You harass them for a bit, and then you bring them to battle at Dorylaeum, the same fucking place again. And they win. Conrad gets shot through the shoulder.
Ooh.
And as we see in this image here, the Second Crusader army is crushed outside Damascus. Again, this is happening in a field in France, because on the one hand, it's an idealized form. On the other hand, it's a political statement of the Europeanness of the Outremer. On the other, this is a guy who only knows how to draw one kind of castle. Sorry, that's why.
There's a little bit of perspective here. You can see that. There's a vanishing point somewhere, probably about here.
Roz as like shit farming peasant criticizing the traveling artist's perspective work.
I wouldn't have known about it. I wouldn't know how to do it. I would.
Would you say that, Eleanor?
I couldn't draw anything this nice.
Oh no, me either. I drew. So I have a funny. I'm going to derail this podcast again. I a couple of years ago. Come on, man. I drew my dad a card. And for those of you who know me personally, a hand drawn card for me is the nicest thing I can do for you because I can't draw. So for his like whatever 2 millionth birthday, I drew him a card and he thought it was something and he gave it back to me. He's like, "Oh, you made this for me when you were a kid." And it was like, "No, motherfucker, I made that for you like 2 years ago." I was a grown man with a 401k when I drew that. Like,
got his ass.
So I got to talk about these two again. Yeah, Conrad is of course on top and Manuel is on bottom, which may not be historically accurate because when Conrad comes back with his army through to Constantinople, I don't know why he does this. Manuel like reconciles with him and personally nurses him back to health with his gay ass.
Nice.
Sorry,
look, dudes rock. Okay,
I'm reading between the lines here, but like, I mean, this ends in like a dynastic marriage between like their two families, which is as close as you can fucking get. These like essentially an alliance. It's wild stuff, and I don't know why these things changed so much. In any case, however, the crusade has been owned. Nur-ad-Din gets the credit for this, Zengi's son. He doesn't really deserve it. It's mostly a guy called Mu'in-ad-Din, who is his enemy and who is the emir of Damascus, but it doesn't matter. Like, the Christians have been defeated. They're not invulnerable. So long as there's a united front between Muslims, which there kind of wasn't here, but anyway. And also, if the Muslims are pious, that idea sort of gets transplanted over, and people start thinking about the idea of jihad. Maybe that you have a religious war against the unbeliever.
Cheeky little jihad. Why not?
Yeah, you kind of have to. It's like every once in a while, you got to do a jihad.
So Nur-ad-Din, who is of course very sectarian and like oppresses the Shia wherever he finds them. He defeats the forces of Antioch at the Battle of Inab. Doesn't even bother to take Antioch. He just goes around it, leaves it as a rump state, and then goes for a swim in the Mediterranean as a sort of symbolic gesture, like they have this coastline back.
That's pretty balling. I like that, and also I just like the opportunity to say rump state. So yeah, it's always good.
Same with Jerusalem. He just doesn't bother to take it. It's not important to him.
Oh, girl, what are you packing in then jeans? That's a thick ass rump steak.
So the Crusader Kingdom's only move is south to try and invade Egypt, and that doesn't work. But the Fatimids are so weak that in desperation they ask this successful jihadi Nur-ad-Din to come and help. In return for which he easily coups them, and then dies of a throat infection. Next slide, please.
Got strep and died.
Yeah, got strep and died. We also now got to talk about some side. Remember when, like, a couple of slides ago, we were talking about armed monks having side hustles?
Yeah.
Well, some of these side hustles are people looking at the Crusades and sort of before the Second Crusade in particular, thinking, "Oh, this is a successful thing." Like having the Pope go and like tell us to do armed conflict and then bless it. What other sort of like hammers? What other nails can we like use this hammer on?
The holy nails they used to string up Jesus, of course.
Yeah, well, one of them is the Reconquista, which was already already in swing. Like but it accelerates after this. Like it's a sort of diversion. Guys who don't want to go and fight in Jerusalem go and fight in Lisbon instead, and get sort of the papal blessing for this. You can crusade against other Christians whenever a Christian heresy pops up. If you want to if it gets too big and you decide that what you want to do is burn a shitload of countryside and like flens a bunch of peasants.
Maybe you might want to go to southern France in the spring and kill some good men and women. Who knows?
Well, not just good, but perfect. Catharism's idea is like once we've taken this sacrament, we are free of all earthly sin forever, which the church cannot tolerate, and this culminates in the Albigensian Crusade in southern France, which gives us the phrase "kill them all, God will know his own." If you want to get a sense of what the vibe is with these things, so you can crusade against Muslims in Al-Andalus, you can crusade against other Christians. But also, you can be like, what about these Slavs? You seen these guys?
Oh, yeah, no. What about these guys over here?
Our boy Bernard of Clairvaux is back again to tell us that we should battle the Slavs until such a time as, by God's help, they shall be either converted or deleted.
99% of the Slavs. 99% of the Slavs have 1% of the Christianity. I'm Bernard of whatever. I will do. We're gonna go kill them all.
We will bring the Dodgers back to Brooklyn.
We're gonna bring the Dodgers back to Kiev, Krakow, so whatever the Polish city is.
Nothing we've been talking about so far has been nice or civilized, right? It's important that we understand that. However, the central deal of what come to be called the Northern Crusades is not being a nice person. This is not the type of fighting where you like really make any treaties with anyone. It's the kind of fighting where you sort of, burn a sacred heath to the ground and like burn all the priests with it.
Are we gonna go to like Norway or Sweden or somewhere?
Well, we're going north to Norway, Sweden, and Finland, but there's not a lot there. What we're mainly talking about here is Poland, Lithuania, Estonia.
Estonia,
yeah.
And this is sort of largely a project of 2 or 3 Christian military orders which coalesce into one. You have the Livonian Brothers, you have the Brothers of Dobrzyń, and then you have the Teutonic Order, which eventually eats both of them.
Yeah.
These are these guys here, the ones with the like black and white sort of like Nazi-looking livery.
Look,
you got a very Nazi vibe on this in general. Right?
Germans get a bit fucking whenever they try and like go Ost. They get a bit like this.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And so that what happens is a process of Ostsiedlung, where you put a lot of people to the sword, and you do that so much that you create you create a theocracy, you create a monastic state. Mm-hmm. Which stretches from Prussia, which only becomes secular in like fucking 1520, all the way up to Lithuania, Estonia, and all of those people get Christianized the hard way. Like there really isn't a sort of like your leaders get to sort of be baptized and then retain their existing power sort of solution here. This is much more, these guys ride into the village and you have to pay taxes to them now, and some other things happen.
Yeah, right, so they were not Christian?
No.
At this point?
These guys? No. They were all like fucking like shamanistic, animistic, ancestor worshipping, all kinds of shit.
And like a lot of other Slavs, we were pissed off about this because that used to be where we went to go get martyred. Like, if you wanted to we started off like one of our first Czech saints. He like did this. He went over to Pomerania and just like insulted all the shamans until they killed him because he wanted it so bad. And like fuck. Now how far are we gonna have to walk down to find a pagan?
These guys actually made him Christian. God damn it.
Yeah. We were using that. Like
we have noticed that this has some, let's say, historical parallels, and those historical parallels continue because they then decide, okay, who else needs Christianity is the Kievan Rus. And so they go east, and the invasion sort of runs out of steam at the Battle of the Ice, the Battle of Lake Pipus, where they fight the Rus.
Miserable.
It's fucking horrible. They fight each other on top of a massive frozen lake, and the Teutonic Knights lose. This has been an important cultural moment for Russians anytime they've needed to think about killing Germans ever since. Eisenstein makes a movie of it, which is like very sort of like it's essentially a World War II propaganda movie.
Raising a flag over the Reichstag, but also with my list of grievances.
yeah. So, I mean, still though, this is tremendously successful for the Vatican as far as they're concerned. Like, the Pope gets de novo Poland and Lithuania out of it, which is like 2 whole ass Christian kingdoms. The Teutonic Order gets total control of trade on the Baltic and a decent amount of fur trade further east. It's win-win unless you're being burned alive for worshipping your ancestors. This is a remarkably good deal for all of the people doing the slaughtering. So, but we got to go back to the Middle East, and we got to take a hard turn here into me being a fangirl on the next slide, because we got to talk about my favorite guy. So, you remember Nuruddin, Zengi's kid? Well, Nuruddin had this Kurdish general, and that general had a son, and that son was called Salahuddin.
Gamer horns. That's fucking
Righteousness of Faith, which is also a really cool name. Not his actual name. His actual name's Yusuf, but like it's a title. So fascinating guy. Genuinely one of the like. I hate great man history. I like popular history. I like talking about like the sort of social movements and things like that.
This guy whipped though.
Yeah, and I'm conscious that I haven't done a lot of that in the notes for this. However, occasionally you get a sort of historical figure who does merit that sort of great man history, because they like. Okay, they don't arrive at this thing single-handedly. Nor do they do everything that they do single-handedly, but the personal things that they do have a huge effect. Like this guy's sort of. Genuinely, this guy's fucking like medieval Napoleon, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of like transformative personal effect.
Oh, don't say that joke of saving, I'll bust a nut.
So Saladin is he's a Sunni. He's serving in the Shia Fatimid Caliphate in Egypt, and he's quite successful. But the Caliph makes him vizier because he's a dipshit. Right? No one respects him. There's a source that says, he says, there is no one weaker or younger than Saladin. Not one of the emirs obeys him or serves him. Which is therefore, he's the perfect guy to make your vizier, to make your counselor, because like he's not going to fucking coup you. Or so he thinks.
Dun, foreshadowing.
Because Saladin plays this sort of brilliant game. He gets very serious. He stops drinking wine. He stops fucking around. And he acts within and against the state. He puts his friends in very boring, very functional jobs. He, as acts of charity, he like builds madrasas or he builds mosques. And he starts secretly corresponding with the Sunni Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad.
You know what would have made it easier is if he had invented the telegraph.
He could have done so much more plotting. He's really good at plotting. He's also really good at fighting. Like, he fights off the Crusaders when they try and come south. He fights off the Byzantines at one point, and he fights off Egyptian rebels. And then, like, it is fucking beautiful Machiavellian masterstroke. Like, a few things happen at once. Like, the Fatimid Caliph dies of a mysterious illness. Some other people die of mysterious illnesses, and then one Friday, like the name switches from the Fatimid Caliph to the Abbasid Caliph in the sermon at the mosque, and nobody really like notices that much. Anybody asks, and it's just like, oh well, the Caliph didn't like name an heir, so now it's just extinct. Sorry.
Long, boring service. Everyone just wants to get out of there.
Yeah. It's like if you did like a 2-hour sermon. 2-hour sermon, and at the end of it, you're like, oh, by the way, a different president now. You're just like, okay, sure.
Whatever.
Not their sundial watches. Maybe their water clock watches.
I want to go home and watch whatever the medieval
Law and Order, man.
Yeah. and so all of a sudden, this guy Saladin is Sultan of Egypt. And he's still sort of nominally beholden, mostly
Bloodless
to
coup. Bloodless coup.
Yeah, he's still nominally beholden to his dad. To his dad's boss, Nuruddin. But like 3 years later, he gets this gift, which is that Nuruddin fucking dies of the throat infection. And Nuruddin's successor,
by strep again.
Same guy.
Time.
The guy dies of strep. His only heir is 15 years old, and that's the one guy who's supposedly able to tell Saladin what to do. And nobody's getting fucking bossed around by a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
He can do whatever the fuck he wants. And we know what Saladin wants because he writes to this 15-year-old to tell him what he's going to do. And what he says he's going to do is to act as a sword against his enemies.
Oh, man.
And
God damn. If you were 15 years old and you're like, yeah,
that sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, but man, I'm just trying to masturbate in this house.
Just like big poster of Saladin. So Damascus is the biggest like thorn in the side of pretty much any Muslim ruler. And what he does is he just sort of diplomatically maneuvers them into a situation where they're forced to ask for his help. And then he just like rides in with 700 guys and goes, yeah, here's the help you asked for. Also, I'm like the emir of you now. And he's like welcomed as a hero for it. He comes out of it smelling of roses.
We'll be welcomed as liberators.
Genuinely. It's like, it's so politically brilliant. Like his enemies try and like pass this off as what it actually was, which is, he wants Damascus and he just takes it. But it doesn't stick because he just goes, yeah, I was invited. And he was. And so the remaining Zengids, they try assassinating him. That doesn't work. They try fighting him in battle. That doesn't work. They try assassinating him again. He fucking wakes up in the middle of the night and catches the hand with the dagger in it, like an inch away from his face.
Wow.
And his response
familiar. This is like a Castro type character.
Yeah.
And his medieval CIA bubbling about the assassination, going to the ye olde green zone McDonald's just to try and feel something again.
His response to his attempted assassination, the second one, is to embark on a short 6-month campaign to completely destroy the assassin sect, which he does. He just like lays waste to them as a political force.
We're not even big enough to have the Burger King. We only have Burger Knights, Burger Lord. We have the burger account.
But he goes east and he just knocks off the like important bits. He takes fucking Aleppo. He takes Mosul. It's like, I am fully into this guy's hype, and a lot of people were at the time too. He like makes sense as a sort of unifying liberator. He's the fucking Simón Bolívar of the Arab world. And I mean, it's debatable whether or not he would have gotten around to like seriously trying to take stuff off the Crusaders anyway. But he has a problem. And the problem is with one guy. Next slide, please. Reynald de Chatillon, aka the Duke from Layer Cake. This huge piece of shit. Not to get too partisan, but like even the more like sort of, if you like, revisionist approaches to understanding Reynald de Chatillon have like at the least described him as impulsive. So
I feel like if that's what carries you through the ages, something's about to go very poorly.
He's this very minor French noble. He arrives basically as a mercenary at the First Crusade, marries way, way above himself, and becomes, by virtue of this, a prince of Antioch. While he's doing this, he at one point extorts and tortures the Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch by covering him in honey and making him sit in the sun all day.
Incredible.
That's a
stuff.
lot of bees. I don't want to deal with that many bees.
No, I've seen The Wicker Man.
He always needs money. Partly because he has like catapulted himself into this sort of social position that he can't really afford. So he raids and he ransacks then Byzantine Cyprus basically on a whim for ransom money. Gets humiliated by Manuel I, the emperor. Same guy, same gay guy as with Conrad. Who like makes him walk barefoot beside his horse and stuff. Tries to raid Aleppo, gets captured by the Muslims, and they keep him in prison for 15 years. Eventually gets ransomed by Manuel I again. There's the thing about Manuel, he just like crops up in weird places.
He just loves to do a ransom, stories. You know, that's his thing. Yeah,
like he pays a lot of money to get Reynard out of jail too. This is like probably part of a very convoluted plan to try and strike up a Byzantine Jerusalem alliance.
Kind of like the guy I was like, okay, I'll pay the bail, whatever, right?
I'll be there. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
my homie go. He didn't do anything wrong. Like half asleep. Why didn't you invent the telegraph yet?
As we know, prison doesn't work. It doesn't reform anybody. and so Reynald comes out of prison worse. He hates Muslims more. He won't listen to anybody on his own side. I mean, the sort of more revisionist answer here is like, he is the only Crusader leader who tries to fight Saladin. But on the other hand, he is the only Crusader leader who tries to fight Saladin. There's this sort of tentative truce that he violates all the time. He insults the Prophet. He tortures his captives. He does this unexpected piratical naval attack through the Red Sea.
Naval conflict. Let's go. I want the Navy. Let me see some boats fighting each other. Let's go.
Well, what happens is that like
just autonomous boat drones.
What happens is that no one's fucking expecting a naval attack. They're not really supposed to do that.
Hell yeah, they never do, Alice.
To the extent to which he successfully raids a bunch of trade ships in the Red Sea, and then sort of credibly threatens Mecca and Medina, which are not really that well defended because they're not, threatened really. There's this rumor that goes around that he wants to like steal Muhammad's corpse and take it back to Jerusalem. All of which sort of conspires to make him Saladin makes a big deal out of his own PR, out of his own like chivalry and stuff. This is a recurring theme, but both he and sort of like later Crusader leaders love to talk about how civilized they are with each other. They love to be like, oh, and then I gave him like a glass of iced rose water and we talked about it as brothers.
Until I stabbed him in the neck.
Well, no, because generally they like ransomed each other and stuff, but it's just this one guy who doesn't know when to fucking stop, who makes Saladin, who like prides himself on his like tolerance and his patience, go, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy. I'm gonna make sure this guy has a nice time. Fucking head.
That's an actionable threat, Alice. We can't do this.
Against a guy who died in, when was the Battle of Hattin? I
don't know. Roz always censors me when I do it.
Know.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So next slide, please. So this sort of provokes Saladin to really crush the Crusader kingdoms, such as they are. He fights the Battle of Hattin, which crushes the Crusader kingdoms as a military power, captures all of their leaders. When he hears of this defeat, the shock straight up kills the Pope, which I find very funny.
Oh yeah,
just
that's
dies
really
of
funny.
Like either a heart attack or a stroke.
Killed.
Yeah, just. And then he ransoms everybody else, but he does behead Reynald on the basis that he said he was going to, and he really doesn't like him. Possibly he's that little head down there. And then after a short siege and a lot more ransoming, Saladin captures Jerusalem, which means it is time for, next slide please, Crusade number 3. The funniest image I have ever seen. Just a guy going like, oh, like he's pulled like a ligament or something, while a totally placid horse looks on.
Yeah, the horses, they don't care.
That horse is about to be murdered in whatever this liquid is. This looks like
cum.
It always comes back to cum.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was about to jump off this horse like it was a Yoshi in a Mario game.
Oh yeah, sacrifice the horse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is Frederick I. He's the Holy Roman Emperor now. You can tell by the big red beard. So because Saladin has taken every port but Tyre, and he might take that too, and it takes like a year to get there, and he might have taken it by then. You can't travel over the Mediterranean for Crusade number 3. You got to go over land. And in the course of doing that, Frederick I's horse slips in a river, he falls, and he drowns in his armor, which is hysterical
Lol
to me.
owned.
That's really dumb. That's a really
tough.
like
What a hell of a way to die.
Probably should have taken the armor off in the event of this. You could have built a bridge like you were like a Roman emperor, for instance.
I'm just built different. I would simply wiggle out of my armor easily.
I would simply
get the
build
quick
the
release
bridge.
buckles. Yeah. So the two remaining armies are the English King Richard, Coeur de Lion, Lionheart, and the French King Louis. They sort of make their way there without drowning. Richard takes Cyprus off the Byzantines because of a party that gets out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this sort of accusations of bride kidnapping. It's all very convoluted. But as a consequence, like he just grabs Cyprus. And then they lay siege to the ports of Acre, or Acre. I
think it's Accra.
Accra. Anyway,
I don't know.
They lay siege to it, and like things have changed quite a bit in like the European method of warfare at this point. They have much more advanced siege engines, and this culminates with Richard setting up two huge mangonels named God's Own Catapult and Bad Neighbor.
I like this. I like it a lot. Let's go.
With which they like breach the walls. The city surrenders and they're predictably massacred, because like this is the Third Crusade. This is especially the one where all of the chronicles are like chivalry even across sides, right? Like Saladin is this sort of noble figure who respects his enemy. Yeah, that shit only applies to important people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a city that has fallen to siege, you are not getting a nice cup of iced rose water. You are getting fucking killed.
Yeah, it's like this is for rich people only. Like if you aren't going to be able to produce a ransom, we don't care. That's it.
Yeah. And Richard wins the Battle of Arsuf largely due to like this sort of better discipline and also the invention of the crossbow, which is a terrifying weapon, which of badly democratizes warfare. Richard gets killed by one on his way back from this crusade by just some kid.
And they're like, and then he had the kid brought in and was like, everybody leave the kid alone. Like he just got lucky. And then they 100% flayed the kid after Richard ate it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Crossbows are great. You can just punch through armor with relatively little effort. You don't really need that much training to use one. You need to be physically strong even. You just need to be able to lift it. And so this is
thing back. I learned this in Minecraft.
Yeah. And so Saladin loses this one, and this ends with the Treaty of Jaffa, which reestablishes the Kingdom of Jerusalem as this strip of land along the coast with its capital at Acre. And then Richard and Saladin, they really like each other. There's this strange sort of period where both of them want a dynastic marriage, but neither of them wants their chosen spouse in it to convert. And it never quite comes off, but it's weird that these guys, like, you know, the way that we think of the Crusades, that's one of the things that's fallen by the wayside, is these guys sort of seeing themselves as social equals and going, actually, yeah, we would quite like to like marry into this. And I don't know. I think Britain would be way more normal with a part Kurdish royal family, but Saladin dies. Richard gets ransomed by some Germans he'd pissed off, and then gets crossbowed on the way home. It's a tentative peace, but Jerusalem is still controlled by the Muslims, and so it is time for, next slide please, we're really blasting through these, Crusade number 4, the funniest one.
We got some
this one is good.
We got some 2 points perspective here.
This guy's got a tube with fire shooting out of it.
2 vanishing points here.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Maybe we got like 3 vanishing points here. Anyway, oh no, because we got this guy here as well. All right.
So this is the last crusade to be called by a pope, incidentally. Everything after this is essentially freelance bullshit. It's the last crusade that I actually put in a slide for, because
like the Pope calls a bunch of crusades against the Hussites, but they all lose, and it's very funny. So
is this the one where they fuck up Venice?
No, it's the one they fuck up Constantinople on behalf of Venice.
They siege their own city. A quick plug: Lions Led by Donkeys did an episode on this, in which I'm on.
Yay!
Go
listen to that.
Get this in more detail.
Yeah.
So fucking Manuel the First, everywhere in this story.
This fucking guy.
When he was still emperor, there had been an embassy to Constantinople by the Republic of Venice. And Manuel had really taken a dislike to this kid called Enrico Dandolo, and he had him blinded because that was just kind of how the Byzantines did things with people they didn't like. And Enrico Dandolo really didn't he really took this personally. And he later becomes Doge of Venice. And so as Doge of Venice, he financially sponsors this Fourth Crusade.
Wow,
which
much
is
crusade, very sword.
Yeah, they
much
quite literally
armor.
get some Dogecoin to do this. And so they're meant to go to Jerusalem. They don't go to Jerusalem. What they do is they sack the Christian city of Zara, and the Pope fucking excommunicates all of them because they're going off message. And he tells them well, he excommunicates them and then goes, "Go to Jerusalem, and I will unexcommunicate you."
Oh man, I'm not doing your dirty work.
It's
Go to
very
Jerusalem.
funny though. That's all popes can do though. They're so excommunicated. Oh.
Imagine logistics of sending the messages, though.
Yeah, right. God, if only they had a telegraph.
Exactly.
So they don't go to Jerusalem. Where they go is Constantinople because they have been told by the Venetians that if they install a different guy as emperor, a guy called Alexios IV, then he will pay them a lot of money and they can all be rich. They think they're going to be greeted as liberators.
No. Have you heard this one before?
They are not greeted as liberators. So they overthrow their guy. They put Alexios in power and demand a shitload of money, which he goes, "Yeah, no, I will totally pay you." He doesn't have the fucking money, is the thing. He starts having them melt down icons for gold and silver to pay off these people who are loitering outside the walls with malicious intent. The Byzantines would have had the forces to defend Constantinople had this not happened so quickly and unexpectedly.
Yeah, so why would they think that they were going to get attacked necessarily by the Venetians? It was just odd, you know.
Yeah,
and so have those big walls.
Yeah,
real big walls.
Plus 5,000 Varangians who are Norse mercenaries. With axes, so they're reasonably happy with this.
Let me do that.
So Alexios, one of them carved his name into the Hagia Sophia. By the way, it still survives. So Alexios is debasing the fucking icons. He's ransacking all of the churches, trying to find a way to pay these people.
Who amongst us has not had to pay a bard tab? They don't remember.
Yeah, and it's not enough. The loans, all of the fucking bills come due, and these guys siege and take Constantinople. And as we've seen before, what happens to a city once you take it? You just do whatever you want. It's the purge. You can burn down a church. You can burn down a synagogue. You can take a bunch of gold. You can kill whoever you want. And they do. This is universally deplored. Catholics are horrified. Orthodox Christians are horrified. Muslims are not really paying attention.
It's widely regarded as a bad move.
Yeah, the thing about Constantinople is that it's for a lot of writers and a lot of sort of thought, it's the city. It's the city. It's the one city. Everything else is a pale imitation of it. And it's vastly depopulated, humiliated. A shitload of sacred art and sacred places are defiled. What this accidentally does is destroy the Byzantine Empire, splits it into 3 parts, causes the Great Schism between Catholics and Orthodox Christians, which, I mean, the Catholic Church is
to this day.
Yeah, the Catholic Church is still apologizing for it. Like,
as well they might,
Yeah. And I mean, this is like the last serious crusade, and it's not even fucking serious. After this, there's like fucking 6 more. They're all a long tail of bullshit nobles who have problems at home going Jerusalem, and then either not taking Jerusalem or once taking Jerusalem for 15 years and then losing it again.
Right, they send all the kids out there.
Yeah, that too. I mean, I've written down the notes here. Imagine living in 1096 forever. I laugh as I live in the 6th consecutive 2016.
Gosh.
It's just one of these things where like the sort of the political and the military settlements are unacceptable but unchangeable, and so it just continues in a dumber way until sort of the tide goes out, as it were. I mean, also, Saladin's dynasty, the Ayyubids, are largely displaced by their own slaves, the Mamluks, which is incidentally how the Seljuks had gotten started in the first place, was by being slave soldiers. So, time is a flat circle. The fucking Mongols invade from the east, and, the Crusader states, such as they are, try to make some hay of this, but can't. The last Crusader states, I think Acre and Tyre fall in the 1290s, and there's like that's it for the Outremer. So some of the knights fuck off to Cyprus or Malta, hold on to them for a couple more centuries. The Knights Templar go back to France and England, and then fucked over in their turn. And I mean, that's the fucking Crusades, really.
Rest in piss, the Outremer.
Yeah, that's one of the Crusades. We will be reviving this. We will be going back to the Crusade vibes.
Never again.
You are going to hate Penn Central Part 4.
I hate you so much. So, I mean, yeah, the Outremer, it was weird while it lasted. What else can we say about it?
Some dudes rule. There's some examples of guys rocking, more examples of guys who don't. Some people were accused of fucking their uncles, and then later in the 14th century, when people would write about Eleanor of Aquitaine, they'd say that she was fucking Saladin as well. Which is not true, but hey, there you go. I'd take it. I'd take it.
I have a final slide here, which is about sort of, I guess, what you call historiography, right? Which is like, what do we learn from studying the history of the Crusades and like the history of the Crusades? And
nothing good.
What are they? What are they in the popular imagination now? And we see here an example of this is a German soldier in Afghanistan wearing a patch that says "pork-eating crusader" with an image of, I think, Richard Coeur de Lion eating a big.
It's not even in German.
No. And I mean, I guess it's sort of like fondly imagined by extremists.
It is in Arabic as well.
Yeah, just so that the people that you're shooting at know that that's why.
Yeah.
As if they'd be able to fucking get close enough to read it.
I think it's very funny.
By them.
I think it's very funny how much they think that other people care about them eating pigs. It's just pretty intense.
And I mean, of course, we're all familiar with guys like this. We're all familiar with the far right appeal to the Crusades, especially now that Islamophobia is twinned with a terror of mass migration. But it's true of both sides to an extent. Like ISIS fucking loved to call the West Romans. They loved that shit because it's Quranically sanctioned. It appeals to previous heritage. Fucking Saladin's heraldry is on like the national emblems of like 5 countries. It's a tremendously appealing thing if you want to talk about religious political violence. So I mean, with that in mind, I really only have it left to sort of invite closing thoughts. Really,
get owned, Crusaders.
Yeah, get owned, Crusaders. I think that's A in primary. B, I just think it would be cool if anyone ever looked at this and considered whether they thought that long term they could uphold some form of occupation in the Middle East when they are from very far away. Maybe think about that. C, don't do Constantinople like that. You know, I think that's important as well. Yeah.
We fucked up a lot, but I just want to say Deus Volt.
Changing the crusade from the inside.
Yes. Roz going on a crusade only to realize 2 miles in that his feet hurt, that he should have brought a bike, and that he hates crowds.
No, I mean, if you bicycled to Damascus, crusade. you would definitely triumph, I think.
If I had a bicycle and they had invented the telegraph.
Well, you'd be up against like Turkic bicycle archers is the thing.
But consider if I had the bicycle before they did.
Well,
and the telegraph, he'd be unstoppable.
Yeah, exactly. I'd have the bicycle and have a big coil of telegraph wire, and I'd be running ground wire the whole way out there.
Well, I mean, that's really all I had. So thank you all so much for listening. Eleanor, thank you for coming on. If the people want more Eleanor, where can they find you?
You can check out my blog, which is going-medieval.com. You can find me on Twitter at goingmedieval. And if you want a nice little medieval history book, you can check out my comic book, The Middle Ages, A Graphic History. I talk about all this shit in it. You know,
oh, yeah.
Just not in as much detail.
Buy the book.
Buy the book. Buy the book.
Buy the book.
Buy the book. Buy the book.
That's really good.
Yeah, you. This is the one you paid for because you're an idiot, or you stole it. In which case, whatever.
Understandable.
We get it. Yeah. Especially if you're one of those people complaining about how much money we make on Twitter.
Yeah. I didn't 100% mean all of the Hassan Piker jokes. I just think they're funny.
Yeah, I can't wait to read those comments.
I'm putting that at the end because I know like that's the least likely place for anyone to hear it, so it will do the least to minimize the angry comments. It all drives engagement. It's all good to me. Yeah. It's funny actually.
Someone when I got really mad in the about some Twitter thread, this doesn't matter. Let's wrap this up. Go Celtics, fuck the Nets, fuck Kyrie Irving, fuck Kevin Durant, fuck Steve Nash, fuck Bruce Brown, fuck Andre Drummond, fuck Steph and Seth Curry.
The Boston Celtics will retake Jerusalem.
Are triumphant. Break out those fucking brooms. How's that feel? Do you like that shit? Go Celtics, baby.
All right.
Interesting.
Mashallah.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.